Hey there, it's Tara from 40BelowFruity, and in this video I'm going to talk about how I transitioned from eating cooked vegan food on the Sea Shepherd ship for 3 months back to being a raw vegan. After eating cooked food on the ship for 3 months, I knew that I was ready to go back to eating raw food. I wanted so badly to feel normal again, just to feel like I'm used to feeling from eating raw food for the last 6 years. So I actually journaled everything. I wrote it all down on paper, at least for the first 10 days or so. And that was the hardest time to go through, was those first 10 days of transitioning back to raw food, because I was in a social situation where food was being served at every meal on the ship and it was cooked vegan. Everyone else was eating it and I had to try to find time and energy to prepare my own meals separately from everybody else. I went back to eating raw foods basically overnight. I don't really like transitioning. Transitioning doesn't really work for me. I like to put my full effort and intention into something when I'm going to do it. So I went fully back to raw food in one day. I just made the decision. I'm tired of feeling out of touch with my body, out of tune with my body. I'm tired of the way that this food makes me feel, and I was really enthusiastic and really ready for a change. And in the first 10 days that I was eating raw foods again, I had some daily practices that were kind of similar to when I was eating the cooked food. So every day I would still have my hot tea when I woke up in the morning, and then I would take my digestive enzymes. I knew there was still cooked food in my system and my body was probably going to take a little bit of time to process it, so I had to have some extra help. My day started at around 3 to 3:30 depending on when my watch was, and then I would have my tea and my enzymes first thing. Sometimes I would have the chance to go back to sleep after the watch, sometimes not, but either way, a few hours later is when I would have my morning smoothie. And I wasn't really hungry for my morning meal. I just felt so full and bloated the whole time eating cooked food that I didn't really know how to tune into when I was feeling hungry or not anymore. I lost that connection with my body. But I would have a smoothie anyways because I knew that I had to keep my energy up. And it was usually 1 to 2 cups of soy milk, around 10 Deglet Noor dates, a couple of bananas, and then a little bit of frozen fruit. And I wasn't able to eat the same quantity of food. I mean, I had been used to eating large quantities of food for a very long time, and my stomach muscles, they stretched to accommodate eating that much food and eating that much fiber. But when I was eating dense cooked foods for 3 months, my stomach shrunk and I was only able to eat barely 1,000 calories a day before I felt completely full and stuffed. So that was something I really needed to get used to. Generally at lunch, I would have another smoothie. I'd create another big smoothie that I'd snack on all afternoon. And there was always salad served, which was a beautiful thing. I feel like that's what really got me through ship life, was having a salad every lunchtime, every dinner time as well. But I would have a big salad that I would load up with lettuce and greens and veggies, and then put this raw ranch dressing over. And I also had a parmesan, a raw vegan parmesan that I would create with walnuts and nutritional yeast, and I'd sprinkle that over top just to make sure that I was full, so I was eating a little extra fat. Then at dinner I would have some chia seed pudding, which I would create the day before or that morning, and it would be about a cup of soy milk. Soy milk was all they had on the ship, so I wasn't eating 100% raw yet. I put that soy milk in and coconut sugar and chia seeds, and then I'd have another big salad. That was my average day while I was still on the ship and transitioning back to eating raw. And I did notice some physical discomfort, some physical things that I needed to get used to in that time. So I had a ton of bloating. Oh my god, I haven't experienced that since I first went raw, like years and years ago. That was an adjustment for sure. But I was just so used to feeling bloated all the time anyways that it wasn't that big of a deal. And then I also noticed that my digestion took a really long time to start functioning normally again. It was like 2 weeks after I started eating raw that I was able to have regular bowel movements again. Some of the positive benefits I noticed was that I felt lighter again. I didn't feel weighed down or heavy from the food I was eating, which was an amazing feeling. The contrast was crazy from what I'd been feeling previous to that. And I also had this mental clarity, this mental energy that I hadn't had for months. And it was like a light bulb turned on and I was able to think properly again. And I didn't have these mood swings or anything like that. Now I'm going to get to your questions about my transition back to raw food. Question number 1, did I transition overnight or did I take it slowly? Kind of answered this already. I transitioned mostly overnight, but there were still some cooked items that I included into my diet because I was on the ship and that was all I had available. So eating things like soy milk and sometimes cane sugar or coconut sugar, and then also sometimes including some steamed veggies into my meals too when I was on the ship just to fill me up. But once I got home, I went fully back into eating raw again and I didn't include any other cooked items in my diet. Question number 2, what steps did I take on a daily basis to transition back to raw food? So the one step that was really important was that I had to prepare myself mentally for this. Being in a social environment, now I understand what everyone's always talking about, being in a family environment where everyone else is eating food that is different from what you're eating. That is very challenging. And especially in a group where there's a lot of camaraderie, it was really hard to eat different from everyone else, especially because the food was already prepared, it was there, and it was easy. So that mental hurdle I had to cross and remember each and every day why I was doing this, why I was choosing to eat raw again. And that got easier with time as the habit formed again and I was used to and accustomed to eating raw food again. But in the beginning it was really challenging, so it was a constant reminder. I had to remind myself, okay, you're eating raw because you feel amazing. This food is nourishing your body and you don't want to feel like you've been feeling. The second step I took was that I always took time to prepare my meals. So I would start the day before, like the night before I would make the chia pudding, or I would pit the dates, or I would do some sort of preparation for the next day so that it would make it easier and I didn't have to spend as much time prepping my food on that day. Sometimes I would take all of my smoothie ingredients, like my fruit, and put it in a bag, throw it in the freezer so that I could just pop it all into the blender the next day and I didn't really have to think about it. The third step that I took was equally as important, and that's that I made a schedule, an actual plan that I could follow and stick to, just like I would for any of my clients that I'm doing health coaching with. So what I did was I wrote down everything I planned to do, the mindset I needed for each day, and my intention for each day. I knew what times I needed to prepare each and every meal so that I would feel satisfied throughout the day, and I never let myself get hungry, because when you're hungry, your judgment goes completely out the window, or at least it does for me. Question number 3 is, did I lose or gain any weight when I transitioned back to eating raw? I don't usually use weight as a way to measure my health or my fitness because I let that number control my life for so many years. It dictated how I felt about myself and my mood. And I'm so over letting weight have that control in my life, so I haven't weighed myself in a long time. But I knew that I weighed 130 pounds when I went to the ship. And when I got home from the ship, I had to go to the women's clinic and they had to weigh me for some forms they had to fill out. And I had gained 20 pounds from eating cooked food for 3 months. That's why it blows my mind how some people can transition from eating raw to eating cooked again and have no physical side effects. It's just so crazy how each and every one of us are so different. And I noticed after a few months on the ship that some of my clothing was getting pretty tight. It was actually digging into my skin. And I hated the way that that felt. Within the first week, I lost about 5 pounds, and I believe that a lot of that was water weight because I was eating so much more salt than I was accustomed to. I barely eat any salt on a raw vegan diet. I maybe get like 500 milligrams a day of sodium. So eating that much salt was so different than what I'm used to. And I'm choosing not to weigh myself anymore because I just don't care about that number. But I have noticed that the weight's been gradually coming off because I can fit into my clothes again better and better each and every day. I think it's much more important to focus, at least for me, on how you feel mentally and physically than to put your focus on weight. Okay, that is how I transitioned from eating cooked food back into raw food. If you have any more questions, post them in the comment section below and I will answer them in another video. Thanks so much for watching, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share, and subscribe if you want to see more videos about the raw food lifestyle, and I will catch you guys next time.